Imagine a city built with millions of granite stones, held together by nothing but gravity and sheer engineering genius. No cement, no mortar, no glue, just perfectly cut blocks stacked so precisely that they have stood the test of time for over 900 years. This is Great Zimbabwe, the legendary House of Rock, and it is arguably the most misunderstood marvel of the ancient world. When European explorers first arrived at these massive ruins in the late 1800s, they were stunned into silence. Their narrow-minded views of the time told them that sub-Saharan Africans couldn't possibly have built something this sophisticated, so they did what people often do when they are confronted with greatness they don't understand. They made up myths. They claimed it was the work of the Phoenicians, or perhaps a lost outpost of the Queen of Sheba, or some mysterious civilization from the Mediterranean. They even went as far as to physically damage the site to try and prove it wasn't African. But the stones themselves told a different story. Modern archaeology has definitively proven that Great Zimbabwe was the capital of a thriving Shona kingdom, built by the ancestors of the people who still inhabit the region today. The sheer scale of this architectural feat is staggering. The Great Enclosure, the most famous part of the ruins, features walls that soar 36 feet into the air and stretch over 800 feet in circumference. Think about the labor involved. We are talking about millions of granite bricks. The builders didn't just pick up random rocks, they used a technique called fire setting. They would heat the massive granite outcrops with fire and then douse them with cold water, causing the rock to split into clean, flat slabs. These slabs were then meticulously shaped and laid in courses. The walls are not just straight, rigid lines, they are organic, curving and flowing with the natural contours of the earth. They are thicker at the base, sometimes up to 15 feet wide, and taper elegantly toward the top to ensure structural integrity. This wasn't just construction, it was high-level physics. Inside the Great Enclosure stands the mysterious Conical Tower, a solid stone structure that has baffled historians for centuries. Was it a giant granary symbolizing the king's wealth, a religious altar, or a royal throne? We may never know for sure, but its presence adds to the aura of power that defines the site. Then, overlooking the entire valley, you have the hill complex. This was the spiritual and political nerve center of the empire. Perched on a massive granite crag, the king lived here, literally looking down on his subjects and the vast trade networks that made him rich. At its peak between the 13th and 15th centuries, Great Zimbabwe was a bustling metropolis of over 18,000 people. It wasn't an isolated forest kingdom, it was a global powerhouse. When researchers excavated the site, they didn't just find local tools. They found shards of exquisite Chinese porcelain from the Ming dynasty, hand-painted Persian pottery, and glass beads that originated in India. The Shona kings traded their vast reserves of gold and ivory for these international luxuries, proving that medieval Africa was a central player in the global economy, long before the first European ships arrived on the coast. One of the most beautiful aspects of the architecture is the decorative stonework. High up on the walls of the Great Enclosure, you can see the chevron pattern, a zigzag design that researchers believe represented the movement of a snake or the flow of water, symbols of fertility and life. And then there are the famous soapstone birds. 8 of these majestic creatures were found perched on pedestals throughout the city, blending human features like 5-toed feet with the wings and beaks of eagles. They were the silent guardians of the kingdom, representing the ancestral spirits of the rulers. By the mid-15th century, the city began to fade. The reasons are still debated. Perhaps the land was overgrazed, the salt supplies ran low, or the gold mines were exhausted. As the trade routes shifted north, the people migrated, leaving behind this silent stone testament to their ingenuity. For decades, the true history of Great Zimbabwe was suppressed by colonial regimes who feared the pride it would instill in the local population. But you cannot hide a city made of mountain. Today, these ruins stand as a powerful reminder that Africa's history is written in stone, in gold, and in the genius of its people. If you've been told that Africa had no history before colonization, Great Zimbabwe is the ultimate proof that those stories were wrong. What other ancient African kingdoms do you want to learn about? Drop a comment below, hit that like button, and follow for more deep dives into the history they didn't teach you in school.